The Xiphosian delegation loomed over the human landing team, their translucent, jelly-like forms pulsing with what Mira Patel suspected was barely contained amusement. She'd seen that look before, on military brass, right before they sent rookies into a training op designed to break them. Mira adjusted her stance, resisting the urge to fold her arms. Show confidence, but not arrogance. They already thought humans were reckless anomalies. No need to confirm it immediately. Grand Examiner Votilar, a Xiphosian elder whose shimmering form shifted hues of deep indigo, extended a tendril toward her. Your people have requested to undergo the Xiphosian Gauntlet of Endurance, a test no species has ever completed. Even the most advanced civilizations take generations to... Yeah, 100 years of suffering, existential torment, yada yada. Jonah Carter, nicknamed Gears, interrupted, waving a hand. His tech visor reflected the alien's glow as he scrutinized a wrist-mounted device. We read the fine print. Let's get this show on the road. The Xiphosians rippled, an undulating wave of silent horror. Mira inhaled sharply. What my engineer means, Grand Examiner, is that we accept the challenge with the utmost respect. Votilar's body dimmed, betraying skepticism. Very well, Deathworlders. You may enter the gauntlet. A deep rumbling beneath their feet signaled the start of the trial. The humans stood on the edge of an endless desert, wind whipping across dunes that stretched to the horizon. Above, a sky the color of bruised flesh, churned with unnatural storms. All right, team, Mira said, scanning the shifting landscape. We stick together, we adapt, and we win. Define win, Sienna Cho murmured, adjusting her utility belt. The artist-turned-explorer squinted at the sky. Because that storm looks like it's debating whether to scour our bones from existence or just blind us first. Rick Mason, the wild card of the group, grinned. Maybe it'll do both. Efficient, you know. He knelt, scooping up a handful of sand. It ran through his fingers like powdered glass. This stuff is hot. If this storm kicks up, it's going to peel us like fruit. A mechanical beep signaled Gear's analysis. Silica-laced particulates. Electrostatic charge buildup. Yeah, that's not a sandstorm. That's a planetary-grade skin exfoliator. He turned to Mira. We should move. Mira nodded. Gears, how long until that thing hits? 8 minutes. Then let's beat it to cover. They sprinted across the dunes, their boots sinking slightly with each step. The wind howled and the air crackled with static. A jagged rock formation jutted from the ground ahead. Mira pointed. There! They reached the base just as the storm slammed into them. The air turned into a screaming vortex of scorching sand, visibility dropping to near zero. Stay low! Mira shouted over the roar. She pressed against the rock, shielding her face. We waited out! Sienna, squinting against the grit, studied the rock's surface. Guys? This isn't a rock, it's metal. Rick wiped sand from his goggles and kicked the structure. A hollow clang echoed beneath the storm's howling. Buried tech? Gears crouched, running a scanner over the surface. It's ancient, possibly Xiphosian. Power signature's faint, but it's there. Mira's mind raced. Can we get inside? Gears grinned. Give me 2 minutes. Lightning arced overhead, the storm's fury intensifying. The ground trembled. Mira shot a look at the swirling chaos beyond their shelter. They wouldn't last long out here. You've got one? Gears cracked his knuckles. I love a challenge. His fingers danced over the exposed panel, rerouting corroded circuits and bypassing ancient security. Sparks flew. Then, a low hum. A section of the wall shifted, parting just enough for them to squeeze through. Mira ushered the team inside. The second they were in, the door slammed shut, silencing the storm outside. The chamber was dimly lit, vast and sprawling, walls lined with what looked like hibernation pods. Dust coated everything. Sienna exhaled. Well, this is unexpected, Rick whistled. Looks like we found someone's lost basement. Mira turned to Gears. Can you bring up lights? He was already at a console, fingers flying. Let's see. A flicker. Then a deep mechanical thrum. Light flooded the space. The pod's surfaces shimmered, revealing forms inside. Sienna inhaled sharply. They're occupied. Rick stepped closer. I'll be damned. Who are they? Gears ran another scan. His face paled. Mira? These aren't just random aliens. These are previous contestants. The silence was heavy. Mira looked at the nearest pod, at the face of a creature frozen in suspended animation. How long have they been here? She asked. Gears swallowed. The readings suggest centuries, maybe longer. A cold weight settled in Mira's chest. This wasn't just a trial. It was a trap, and they had just stepped inside. The chamber thrummed with ancient energy, the glow from the hibernation pods casting eerie shadows across the dust-laden floor. Mira Patel stood motionless, staring at the beings trapped inside. Some were humanoid, others monstrous in shape, but all were frozen in time, contestants who had entered the Xiphosian gauntlet of endurance and never left. Rick Mason exhaled slowly. So, does this count as failing? Gears scowled, his fingers gliding over his wrist-mounted scanner. Failing? Number this is cheating. The Xiphosians didn't design a survival test. They built a damn prison. Sienna Cho stepped closer to one of the pods, wiping dust from the glass. Inside, a reptilian being was curled in a fetal position, its scales dull with age. She shuddered. They must have thought they were still playing the game? Mira's jaw tightened. This wasn't just some extreme endurance test. It was a trap designed to break the minds and bodies of whoever dared enter. The challenge was never meant to be completed. She turned to Gears. Can you get them out? He frowned, adjusting his visor. Maybe, but we don't know if they're stable. Waking them up all at once could be... A deep clunk reverberated through the chamber. Everyone froze. Rick turned, scanning the walls. That sounded important. The lights flickered, then shifted from cool blue to a pulsing red. A mechanical voice boomed overhead in an alien tongue, its meaning unmistakable. Containment breach detected. Survival protocols engaged. The pods hissed. Not the occupied ones, new ones. Panels slid open along the far wall, revealing rows of humanoid machines with sleek black plating and glowing crimson eyes. Their limbs unfolded with unnatural precision as they stepped forward in perfect synchronization. Sienna swallowed. So, anyone else getting murder droid vibes? Mira didn't hesitate. Move! The first machine lunged. Rick was already in motion, diving aside as a clawed hand struck where his head had been a second before. He rolled to his feet, laughing. Oh, this is great! The death course comes with in-house exterminators. Mira drew her plasma sidearm and fired. The shot sizzled against the nearest bot's chest, barely scorching it. Gears cursed. They've got high-resistance plating. We need... Before he could finish, Sienna darted past him, grabbing a rusted pipe from the floor. With surprising grace, she jammed it into the knee joint of an advancing bot. The machine seized, legs locking as it toppled. Structural weak points, she called. They're not invincible, Rick whooped. That's the spirit, Cho. He grabbed a loose panel from a broken pod and used it as a makeshift shield, ramming it into another bot's face. Sparks flew as it stumbled back. Gears, meanwhile, was working on something far riskier. Keep them busy, he shouted, kneeling at the control panel. If I can overload their command system... One of the machines noticed him. It turned, arms shifting into a long, serrated blade. Mira saw it first. Gears! Down! She tackled him just as the blade slashed through the air, grazing the back of her armor. Pain flared across her spine, but she gritted her teeth, forcing herself to move. Gears scrambled back, eyes wide. You good? Finish the override, she hissed, pushing him toward the console. He nodded, fingers flying over the controls. The red emergency lights flickered. The bots jerked, their movements slowing. Rick bashed another with a scavenge pipe. Whatever you're doing, do it faster. A final keystroke. A low hum filled the air. Then the machine stopped. Their eyes flickered once, then twice. Then they collapsed. The chamber fell into silence. Mira exhaled, rolling her shoulders. Status? Rick wiped sweat from his brow. I'm good, mostly. Sienna leaned against the wall, catching her breath. I've had better days. Gears grinned, despite the close call. And that is how you bypass a kill protocol. Mira nodded. Let's move before the system reboots. We need to find a way out. As if on cue, the far wall shuddered and split open, revealing a dark corridor beyond. Rick peered into the abyss. I really don't like how ominous that looks, Mira smirked. Then you'll hate going first. With that, she stepped forward, leading the team deeper into the gauntlet. The corridor stretched before them, a narrow metallic tunnel, lined with pulsing veins of alien energy. The air was thick with the scent of ozone, and something wrong, a distortion that made Mira's skin prickle. Rick Mason let out a low whistle. This place is giving me haunted spaceship vibes. Gears, still hunched over his scanner, grunted. That's because it's not just a tunnel. It's a data conduit. We're walking inside the system. Sienna Cho frowned. Wait, so this whole place is... What? A giant computer? More than that, Gears muttered. It's adaptive. The gauntlet isn't just a physical endurance test. It's a simulation running in real time. And it's learning from us. Mira stopped cold. You mean it's changing the course based on how we react? Gears nodded. Yeah, and considering we just wrecked its security droids, and I'd bet it's adapting fast. Rick stretched his arms. Great. I love a challenge. Sienna shot him a look. You also love diving headfirst into problems. And it always works out, Mira sighed. Let's move. The sooner we break this thing, the sooner we get out. They pressed forward, the tunnel sloping downward until they reached a cavernous chamber. At its center stood a massive construct, a sphere of shifting, translucent panels, humming with raw power. Strange alien symbols floated in the air, rearranging themselves in hypnotic patterns. Gears exhaled. That's the core system. If we shut it down, we break the gauntlet. Mira's instinct screamed at her. It was too easy. And the catch? Gears studied his scanner. His expression darkened. The catch is we're already inside it. The walls rippled. A deep, resonant hum filled the air, and suddenly the chamber wasn't a chamber anymore. It was a battlefield. Endless dunes stretched to the horizon, the sky now a violent storm of crackling lightning. Jagged mountains erupted from the ground, forming a labyrinth of twisting rock formations. Shadows moved within them, fast, predatory shapes that mirrored their every movement. Sienna staggered back. No, this isn't real. Gears clenched his fists. It feels real, and that's all that matters. Rick grinned. So what? We just gotta win the simulations game. Mira looked at the shifting landscape. We break it. She turned to Gears. Can you overload the core? He hesitated. Yeah, but we're still inside the system. If I crash it, there's no telling what happens to us. Rick shrugged. Guess we'll find out. Mira smirked. That's the spirit. A deafening roar split the air. The shadows coalesced into monstrous forms, towering clawed creatures with eyes like burning coals. They surged forward. Rick cracked his knuckles. Looks like we got company. Mira didn't hesitate. Hold them off. Gears, do your thing. As the creatures lunged, Rick met them head-on, dodging razor-sharp claws and landing solid blows. Sienna moved with fluid precision, using the terrain to evade and outmaneuver. Mira fought like a soldier, precise, brutal, efficient. And through it all, Gears worked. His fingers blurred over the holographic interface, bypassing layers of alien encryption, feeding the system false inputs, forcing contradictions into its logic. The simulation glitched. One moment, the storm raged. The next, clear skies. The ground shifted, flickering between rock, metal, and empty void. The creatures roared in confusion as their bodies twisted, shapes warping like corrupted data. The system was breaking. Gears gritted his teeth. Almost there, the core shuddered. A voice boomed from everywhere and nowhere. Unacceptable error. Initiating failsafe. The world snapped back to the chamber. The core pulsed violently, its energy spiking to unstable levels. Gears cursed. It's trying to reboot itself. We need to... Rick, grinning like a madman, did what he did best. He punched the core. It cracked. A shockwave rippled outward. The system collapsed. Darkness swallowed them whole. Then, silence. And suddenly they were back at the entrance of the gauntlet, standing before a stunned council of Xiphosians. The test was over, and humanity had won. You have returned, Vodilar finally said, his voice vibrating with what sounded like dismay. Rick Mason dusted off his sleeves. Yep, wasn't even that hard. The entire delegation rippled violently. You were inside the gauntlet for a single planetary rotation, another Xiphosian official said, their tone teetering between incredulity and outrage. The challenge is meant to last 100 years. Gears, still rubbing his temples from the aftershocks of the system collapse, let out a dry chuckle. Yeah, about that. You might want to rethink your security protocols. Turns out your impossible test was running on some pretty outdated software. Vodilar pulsed a deep crimson. The gauntlet of endurance was crafted by the greatest minds of our civilization. No species has ever come close to completion. It adapts to all threats. It is unbeatable. Sienna Cho folded her arms. Well, clearly not. The assembled Xiphosians let out a collective ripple of noise, a chorus of organic chimes and reverberations that Mira assumed was the equivalent of panicked murmuring. Another elder finally stepped forward, their body flashing warning shades of electric blue. You claim to have completed the gauntlet, but we received no transmission of success. No beacon was activated. Their tone grew sharper. If this is deception... Mira straightened, all too aware that a misunderstanding here could turn very bad, very fast. We didn't complete it in the traditional sense, she admitted. We broke it. A tremor rippled through the delegation. You what? Votilar's voice hit an octave that probably wasn't meant for human ears. Rick crossed his arms. Look, we tried to play by your rules, but your fancy trial turned out to be a rigged game, a trap. So we did what humans do best, he grinned. We found a workaround. Sienna sighed. You punched the core system, Rick. Rick shrugged. And it worked. Gears smirked. Technically, I crashed the system. He just helped. Vodilar looked like he might actually explode into a gelatinous puddle. You destroyed a sacred institution that has existed for millennia. Mira held up a hand. Not destroyed, just forcefully updated. She gestured to the display panels surrounding the gathering hall. One of them still flickered with corrupted data, struggling to recover from the abrupt shutdown. Your test wasn't a survival trial. It was a prison. The beings inside weren't being evaluated. They were trapped. A murmur spread through the delegation, some shifting colors of deep contemplation, others of outright panic. Gears tilted his head, listening to his earpiece. By the way, about that, those contestants you locked away, they're waking up? He flashed a grin. I may have set an auto-reboot on the stasis pods before we left. The council chamber erupted into chaos. Mira let them panic for a moment before she stepped forward again, voice calm but firm. You wanted to see if humans could survive your challenge. Her gaze swept across the delegation. We didn't just survive. We refused to let it stand. If that's not proof of endurance, I don't know what is. Votilar was vibrating so aggressively that for a moment, Mira worried he might physically detonate. Then slowly his form settled into a deep, unreadable shade of violet. You claim victory, he said at last, and yet the gauntlet no longer exists to confirm it. Rick smirked. Sounds like a you problem. Mira shot him a warning glance before turning back to Votilar. The choice is yours. You can acknowledge that humans overcame your greatest challenge, or you can pretend it never happened. She took a step closer. But I have a feeling your people don't like admitting they made a mistake. The elder delegation exchanged long, silent glances. The weight of the moment settled over the hall. Then finally, Baudelaire let out a slow, pensive hum. Your kind is aberrant, Rick grinned. We get that a lot. Baudelaire exhaled, his form shifting to an unreadable neutral tone. Very well. The Xiphosian gauntlet of endurance is no more. In its place, we shall record a new legend. His gaze locked onto Mira, the Deathworlders who broke the unbreakable. A hush fell over the assembly. Then, one by one, the Xiphosians bowed, an acknowledgement Mira never expected to see. Mira exchanged glances with her team. Sienna looked stunned. Gears looked smug. And Rick just looked like he was waiting for the next dumb adventure. Mira exhaled. Well, that's one way to make first contact. Rick slung an arm around her shoulder. So, does this mean we get a trophy? Gears groaned. For the last time, Rick. The conversation was lost beneath the Xiphosians' continued murmurs, some watching the humans with newfound respect, others looking like they still weren't entirely convinced they weren't hallucinating. As Mira and her team made their way back to their ship, she couldn't help but grin. One day, 100-year test, shattered.